minutes after 12, after 11 in Queensland.
This is House.
And now on the Chris Smith Show, Open House, brought to you by Domain.
Yes, each Saturday this year we'll be holding our own open house on the program. I'll invite the country's leading real estate experts into the studio to join me. And we discuss a range of issues and topics when it comes to real estate, your thoughts on the market, our experts' thoughts on where you were considering moving to. We also give you a chance to pick their brains on the open line, 131873. Peter O'Malley is a consultant with Harris Partners in Sydney's Balmain, and he knows his Canberra, he knows his Brisbane and Sydney quite well. So if you've got questions, it doesn't matter whether it's from Canberra or Brisbane, jump on the open line, 131873. Peter, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Chris.
How's things?
Pretty well. I think the property story of the week for mine is the rental market in suburbia is under real pressure.
Right.
Getting stories of property managers doing 16 inspections in a weekend and not leasing a property. And that's after a lot of those properties have had price adjustments down. So I think that's a function of oversupply with apartments in suburbia and a bit of demand being dampened with the coronavirus and the Chinese students not coming back.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. And I've discussed this before on this segment about the impact the Chinese population that either are students here, live here, or work here have on our real estate market.
Yeah, that's right, and it's going to be a delayed impact on the market. And I think from this point on, if the travel bans are sustained, that will begin to impact on the property market. First through rentals, possibly at a later date through property values. That hasn't happened at the moment. What I'm hearing on the ground is about half of Chinese students haven't returned for the new year.
About 50% of them, eh? So a significant hit as a result of coronavirus. Now, are first home buyers benefiting from the federal government's $10,000 grant? I've noticed a few stories during the week saying the grant was being taken up by a lot of first home buyers.
Yeah, it's got a cap on it in terms of the numbers that can take advantage of it, and that's 10,000. First home buyers that are struggling to pull a large deposit and avoid lenders' mortgage insurance will benefit most from it. What any government incentive does is it distorts the market, Chris. So it's brought first home buyer demand forward, and once that calendar year cap of 10,000 is reached, there may be a softening in demand after that, and therefore, particularly as we've just discussed with the rental market being under pressure, first home buyers might actually find better buying by letting the incentive pass by and coming back and having a look at the market mid-year.
Oh, right. Okay. That's interesting. What about Brisbane? How has the start of the year fared for those with real estate in Brisbane and looking to move or buy or rent?
Brisbane's a really boring market. Interest rates have come down considerably over the last 10 years. And
he means that with all the nice intentions, of course. It doesn't mean that if you live in Brisbane, you're boring. It just means that the real estate market at the moment is static. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Correct, Chris. The price action is boring, I should say, in comparison to Sydney and Melbourne, where we're either in crash mode or boom mode in the last 10 years.
That's right.
Is Brisbane's price action's been very boring and very flat.
Yeah.
That's good because it gives a purchaser confidence that they can buy in and they're not at risk of a 10 or a 20% drop in prices when the heat comes out of the market. Yeah. I still maintain that Brisbane is probably representing very fair value and has good prospects because of its medium price in comparison to other capital cities around the country.
Okay, that's worth noting. I want to talk about Canberra, and I also want to talk today about downsizing. And if you've got a story about downsizing, maybe you've done it, maybe you're in the process of doing it, maybe you're thinking about it. What are the pros and cons of downsizing? What are your experiences? You can talk to us right here on 131873. Back with Peter O'Malley right after this.
I've just had the gigs
and Sunday.
I'm with Peter O'Malley. We're talking real estate in our open house segment. If you've got a question to ask about any of the markets, Sydney, Brisbane, Canberra, dial away, 131873. Now, Peter was talking about the first home buyers grant, $10,000 grant, and he was talking about the fact that there's a ceiling on this grant of just $10,000. Well, our conveyancing expert and one of the clients of this radio network, Paul Denny, has just phoned in. G'day there, Paul.
Chris, how are you?
I'm doing very, very well. You want to
Yeah.
just fill us in on where
Well,
we're up to in terms of this first home buyers grant?
well, basically that package that the federal government introduced, which is basically paying for the mortgage guarantee insurance, was fully expended by the end of January. There are no more left.
Right.
So it was rushed, and we're getting feedback from mortgage brokers now that it's just not available.
And that's the end of it. So there'll be no more
That's it.
further announcements or extension of the scheme.
Well, you'd think that they'd think about it, but it's certainly not available now. NAB, Commonwealth Bank both had an allocation. They have no more left.
Right, okay. That's worth noting for those
Yes.
people who've been holding back. You've held back too long.
Well, I think the reason is the people that have taken it were holding back until January 1.
Yeah.
And then they just flooded it when it became available on the 1st of January. But they're all gone.
Yeah, okay. Good on you, Paul. Thank you very much for the information.
Okay.
There you
All
go.
right, see you later.
10,000 gone, Peter O'Malley.
Yeah, it was a strange incentive for mine, Chris, in that it was only available to 10,000 people nationally, and any incentive history has shown us distorts the market. And what Paul has outlined there is that there was immense demand from first home buyers during January, and first home buyers that want to take advantage of that grant now have to wait 11 months for January 1, 2021.
Yeah. Now, we're going to talk downsizing in just a second. Canberra. Where's the market up to in Canberra? Of course, all the politicians and everyone else has gone back.
The Canberra market's continuing to perform well. During January, when, say, Sydney and Melbourne rose 1.5 and 1.4 respectively, Canberra housing rose 0.3. So that's a subtle slowing in the Canberra market for the first time in a while. The median house price in Canberra is $701,000, and if we compare that, say, with Brisbane at $547, you can see that Canberra housing has had a terrific run.
Very much so.
What I'd caution investors is they should be looking for the market that's about to move rather than the one that has enjoyed sustained growth, though. And that's not to say that you shouldn't buy an investment property in Canberra, but when it's running on those sorts of numbers versus, say, Brisbane, as an investor, I'd probably be leaning towards Brisbane.
The same thing would probably apply to Hobart, which has had an incredible run as well, right?
Absolutely. The median house price in Hobart is $512. Again, comparing that with Brisbane at $547, you would have to think that Hobart is now fully priced as well.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's interesting. Downsizing. For a lot of our listeners, they've either considering it, doing it, or have done it. When the kids leave home and the other 4 bedrooms or the 3 bedrooms are no longer used, but you also want to travel, you want to use your money, and the money is all tied up in your house. What are the best rules to follow when you're considering downsizing?
We need to try and pick the market conditions as best you can, even if that means selling slightly earlier than you anticipated. And what we're cautioning our clients at the moment in Sydney is these robust market conditions won't last. This cycle that we're enjoying at the moment, and we are enjoying it because prices are very strong, I don't think it'll be a long cycle like the last boom, which went for 4.5 years, Chris.
Right, okay.
So we're saying to baby boomers who are thinking of downsizing in the next 1 to 2 years, you should give strong consideration to going early. Most baby boomers are happy to downsize. What they're unsure about, Chris, is where to go, because a function of a strong property market is really low stock levels. So baby boomers are saying to us, I know I can sell this house and I know I can get a great price from it, but please show us what we would go into.
Where do we go?
Yeah, I still think, Chris, there's risks in the market, namely the coronavirus, and I still think it's dangerous for baby boomers to buy before they've sold.
Yeah, and sadly that happens all too often, doesn't it?
Yes.
Where people have that crossover, and so therefore they're committed to sell their house at a particular time so that they can have the money to pay the rest of the money for the new house. But the problem is you mightn't get the price you want at the time you want it.
That's right, and market conditions can change quickly. This is a fluid situation, what's happening with the coronavirus, and if you went out and bid at an auction today and buy a new house and say, we'll sell ours in a few months' time, the market condition may not be where you want it to be, and suddenly you're taking a hit on your price expectations.
And baby boomers who get to the retirement stage and say, I want to downsize now, and they get rid of their home, Are they more likely to move into apartments or smaller houses?
They prefer smaller houses, is my personal experience.
They want a garden?
It's more about avoiding the strata fees and the issues that have gone with apartments in the last few years.
Right.
What has happened with apartment defects has really hit sentiment, particularly towards the modern high-rises.
Has it?
And baby boomers are saying to us, smaller housing, single-level housing is our preference.
I don't want to get burnt on an apartment that is going to be subject to cracking and problems with foundations, as we've seen in Mascot and also in Homebush.
That's right. Stress-free retirement, which is understandable.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? 131873 is the telephone number. Peter O'Malley, consultant with Harris Partners. You can go to their website too, by the way, harrispartners.com.au, harrispartners.com.au. A Newcastle question. Colin, you've got a question for Peter. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hello, Peter.
Hello, Colin.
I've got a house in Newcastle, and I just, you know all about all these things, and I thought you wanted to give me a heads up on what you think's happening there.
Look, a lot of young families have fled Sydney in the last 5 years and headed to Newcastle. Newcastle's enjoyed really good growth, Colin, more so than the Central Coast, which has been interesting. I've been watching the numbers and, as I say, in the last 5 to 7 years, Newcastle housing has done really well and it's outperformed the Central Coast. So I don't think you'll have any problems getting a good price in Newcastle. But if you're looking to buy and sell in Newcastle, it's all relevant, of course. Is it an investment or your primary residence, Colin?
No, it's an investment. I just want to see how it's going to go in the future for my kids, you know.
Look, I would have felt in the short to medium term that Newcastle is fully priced, potentially even slightly overpriced. So I don't think in the short to medium term you'll lose much by selling it. Real estate in good markets like Newcastle is always very good long term. So you've just got to make a decision now. Are you a short term holder or a long term holder?
Long term. I've had it for about 4 years, 5 years. So trying to hang on to it.
Sounds like you want to ride another cycle.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Good luck with it, Colin.
Thank you, Colin, for your call. I've got another Colin phoning through from Brisbane. Go ahead, Col.
Hi, how are you?
We're well, thank you.
Hi, Colin.
Hi, Peter. Just in relation to that strata title business you were talking about, my wife and I purchased a unit in Bundaberg about 12 years ago, and since then we've had a flood up there, etc., etc. If we were to try and sell our unit today, we would lose on the current pricing in that area just short of $100,000 on our purchase price.
And what was your purchase price, please, Colin?
It was $268,000.
Okay, so you're facing a 40% drop in value there.
Yep.
Okay.
And the other thing, the strata title part of it, because of the flood, as you're aware with strata title, I as an owner don't have the ability to insure my unit. It has to be done through the body corporate. The body corporate insured the units all right, but they didn't read the fine print, and the flood insurance was $50,000 for the whole complex. Oh. And there's 9 units in the complex.
Sorry to hear, Colin. Yeah, what I would say, though, is that that's probably more a function of the Bundaberg market and the flooding issue rather than strata title properties dropping 40% in value. It's just coincidental that it is a strata title unit. The Bundaberg market's been pretty hit and never really recovered from a lack of employment in those floods about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Good on you, Col.
The strata title fees are exorbitant up there.
Yes, they are, and that's mainly insurance, I imagine, is it, Colin?
Yeah, I think so. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You've got to do your homework on strata fees. You've got to do your homework on what they pay for insurance, etc., before you get anywhere near an apartment.
That's correct, and that's for Bundaberg up, Chris. So North Queensland, Townsville, Cairns, Palm Cove, that's all going through the same thing.
Great stuff. Peter, thank you very much for coming in. Always good to have you in here, mate.
Pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
All right, Peter O'Malley, consultant with Harris Partners. On our open house segment, it's 11:45, 11:45 in Queensland. We'll get a sports update for you right after this.
Traffic, in or out of the country.